In the final fading light of the age of myths, the barrier between our world and the realm of the gods was thin, almost transparent. This was the time of the Van Lang Kingdom, a land of unparalleled prosperity. Under the wise rule of King Hung XVIII, the kingdom flourished, its people content, their songs of peace carried on the wind. But such incredible fortune always comes at a price. The king's greatest treasure, and his greatest burden, was his daughter, Princess Myra. Princess Myra was no ordinary mortal. Her beauty was so breathtaking, it seemed a challenge to the heavens themselves. Her skin shimmered like a pearl from the deepest ocean trench, and her eyes held the clear, terrifying depth of an autumn lake. She moved with the impossible grace of a willow branch caught in a storm, delicate yet unbreakable. Whispers of her existence spread to every corner of the world, a siren's call drawing fate itself to the palace gates. King Hong, burdened by a father's foresight, knew this beauty was not a gift, but a catalyst for war. To protect his kingdom, he knew he had to find a suitor whose strength and virtue could match her divine allure. He sent a royal decree to the farthest reaches of the known world. The first to answer was a dark omen from the scorched plains of the Westlands. The Western King arrived, his entourage a clattering parade of iron and avarice. He offered mountains of gold and silver, golden betel, and silver areca nuts, trying to buy what could never be sold. But a smell of ash and tyranny clung to him. The king's royal advisors grew pale, whispering of the Western King's cruelty, his advanced age, and the predatory glint in his eyes. King Hong wisely rejected the offer. The Western King left not in sadness, but with a silent promise of revenge, leaving a festering wound between their two kingdoms. But the true test was yet to come. As the shadow of the West receded, the very elements of the world began to stir. A strange, suffocating energy fell upon the capital. From the east, the sky turned a bruised, violent purple, heavy with unshed rain. From the west, the peaks of Tan Vian Mountain began to glow with a blinding, holy light. Then, at the exact same moment, two strangers appeared at the palace gates. Their arrival shook the very foundations of the earth. The first emerged from the mists of the three peaks. He was the Mountain Lord, the embodiment of the earth's unyielding strength. His beauty was rugged and timeless, like ancient granite. His eyes were burning stars, and where he walked, the stone floor bloomed with impossible life. He was the immovable object. The second stepped out of the crashing waves of the distant sea. He was the Sea Lord, dressed in robes woven from living sea foam and the scales of giant leviathans. He radiated a fierce, terrifying majesty. His breath carried the sharp scent of the abyss and the deep, menacing roar of a gathering typhoon. He was the unstoppable force. They stood before King Hung in the Grand Hall, the air crackling with the raw energy of their opposing natures. To prove their worth, the king demanded they display their power. The Mountain Lord, with an impassive expression, simply raised a hand. Instantly, the ground groaned and convulsed. Magnificent mountain ranges erupted from the flat plains, their jagged peaks tearing through the sky. Lush, dense forests spiraled into existence, and wild beasts of the land bowed to his silent command. The Sea Lord responded with a scornful laugh. With a flick of his wrist, the sky itself screamed. Thunder shattered the silence as rain fell in torrential sheets, threatening to wash the world away. Massive pillars of water erupted from the ground, twisting into celestial dragons that roared with the voice of the deep. Ancient serpents and thousand-year-old turtles rose from the spectral waters, paying homage to their sovereign. King Hung sat frozen on his throne, his heart seized by pure terror. He looked to his advisors, but they were speechless, struck dumb by awe and fear. Both of these beings possessed the power to unmake the world, yet both sought to protect it for the love of his daughter. The king realized with a sinking dread that he could not choose one without invoking the apocalyptic wrath of the other. The fate of the Lakviet people now hung by a single fragile thread, suspended between the fury of the waves and the judgment of the stone. The expulsion of the Western king had left a bitter taste, but that diplomatic sting was nothing compared to the storm now brewing within the Van Lang kingdom. A palpable energy, thick and electric, settled over the land, making the palace guard's hair stand on end. This was not the familiar tension of politics. It was a primal force, ancient and raw. A low hum resonated through the earth itself. A vibration felt deep in the bones of every Lakviet person. From the misty peaks of Tan Vien, a silhouette emerged, as if the mountain itself had taken human form. This was the Mountain Lord, a being of terrifying solidity. His skin was the color of sun-baked granite, and his eyes held the silent, ancient wisdom of the deep earth. Where he walked, the ground didn't merely support him, it celebrated his passage. Sprouting blossoms of pure jade and emerald in his wake, he was the anchor, the immovable, the master of all that endures. Just as his imposing figure reached the palace, the wind screamed, carrying the sharp, salty tang of the ocean. A shadow darker than a monsoon cloud swept inland from the coast. The Sea Lord had arrived. He moved not with the solidity of stone, but with the fluid, crushing force of a tidal wave. His robe shimmered like moonlight on a restless ocean, and his presence was a suffocating, intense pressure. His eyes were the color of the abyss, and his breath carried the roar of 1,000 crashing waves. He was the storm, the chaotic power that erodes all things. They stood before the palace gates, two titans, arriving at the exact same heartbeat. They had come to claim the same prize, Princess Myra, whose legendary beauty had summoned them from the very edges of reality. King Hung XVIII sat on his throne, his heart hammering against his ribs. He looked at these impossible suitors and felt a cold dread wash over him. To choose one was to enrage the other. To reject both was to invite annihilation. "Show me," King Hung commanded, his voice trembling but firm. "Show me the strength that would protect my daughter." The Mountain Lord stepped forward. He raised a single calloused hand, and the earth groaned in response. Before the terrified court, the flatlands buckled and heaved. Great, jagged spires of rock tore through the soil, rising into magnificent mountain ranges that pierced the clouds. With a subtle turn of his wrist, the stone turned green as ancient forests erupted from the rock in seconds, the roar of tigers and elephants echoing through the newly formed valleys. He offered a fortress of life, an unbreakable dominion over the land. The Sea Lord laughed, a sound like stones grinding under the surf. He stepped past his rival, not merely gesturing, but unleashing his power. The sky turned a bruised purple as thunder detonated directly above them. Rain fell in violent sheets, turning the courtyard into a swirling lake in moments. From the rising waters, impossible shapes emerged. Serpents with iridescent blue scales, turtles the size of houses, and leviathans from the darkest trenches of the ocean. He summoned the raw, devastating power of the sea, promising a love as deep and perilous as the abyss itself. The royal advisors were pale, whispering urgently to the king. "Majesty," one croaked. "The Mountain Lord is our survival, but the Sea Lord can drown the world. They are equal in might. To pick one is to declare war on the very nature of the other." King Hung looked at Princess Myra, her face a perfect silent mask, her fate suspended between the crushing rock and the drowning deep. He realized fairness was his only shield. He couldn't judge them by their infinite power. He had to judge them by their devotion. The king rose, the weight of his crown heavier than ever, and raised his hand, silencing the thunder and the trembling earth. Two gods, one intent, he proclaimed. I cannot choose between the earth that sustains us and the water that gives us life. Therefore, let the difficulty of the task decide your worthiness. He paused, his eyes hard and calculating. Return to your domains. The contest will be decided not by strength, but by the rarity of your offering. Tomorrow at first light, whoever arrives at my gates, first with the wedding gifts I demand, shall claim the hand of Princess Myra. The king then recited the list of gifts, a list so specific, so tied to the secrets of the land, that it whispered of a hidden bias. But the words were spoken, and the wheels of fate began to turn, grinding toward a tragedy that would scar the land forever. The decree fell from King Hong 16's lips, not merely as a challenge, but as a sentence written in stone, heavy with the weight of inevitable tragedy. The king, fearing the volatile and tempestuous nature of the ocean, had made a choice, veiled in the guise of fairness. He looked upon the two godlike beings, his eyes hardening against the terrifying allure of the Sea Lord, and declared the price for Princess Myra's hand. The contest of strength is a stalemate, the king announced, his voice echoing off the bronze drums of the royal palace. Therefore, let piety and swiftness decide the victor. I require wedding gifts of a kind never before seen in the Van Lang kingdom. He who returns first, at the break of dawn, with these treasures, shall claim the princess. The court held its breath, as the king listed the impossible tribute. 100 pots of glutinous rice, 100 rare sticky rice cakes, an elephant with 9 tusks, a rooster with 9 spurs, and a horse with 9 crimson manes. A ripple of unease moved through the gathered Lac Viet people. These were creatures of legend, aberrations of biology that dwelt deep within the shadowed folds of the ancient forests, far beyond the reach of the tides. The royal advisors lowered their heads, understanding the king's stratagem immediately. It was a rigged game. The challenge favored the master of the earth, the sovereign of the high places. The Sea Lord, standing amidst a puddle of brine on the palace floor, narrowed his eyes. The roar of the ocean within him quieted to a sinister hiss. He understood the insult. The king had asked for the bounty of the mountains, to wed the daughter of the plains, rejecting the treasures of the deep. Yet his pride was as boundless as his domain. With a look of icy determination that promised retribution should he be slighted, he turned and dissolved into a mist of sea spray, rushing toward the coast to scour the corners of the world for the impossible beasts. The mountain lord, however, remained calm. His expression was that of a stone monolith, enduring the wind. He bowed once to King Hong 16, a gesture of respect and assured victory, before stepping back toward the looming silhouette of Tan Vien. He did not need to hunt. He needed only to command. Night descended upon the Van Lang kingdom, but there was no sleep in the realm of gods. In the dark canopy of the Westlands and the high peaks of Tan Vien, the mountain lord slammed his staff against the bedrock. The vibration hummed through the roots of ancient banyans and pierced the limestone caverns. He called upon the spirits of the wild, warping the flesh of beasts to match the king's decree. From the deepest thickets, elephants grew ivory tusks in fan-like arrays. Roosters in the bamboo groves sprouted spurs of razor-sharp bone. Horses of the wild steppe grew manes that flowed like 9 rivers of blood. The earth yielded to him because he was its master. Meanwhile, the Sea Lord waged a desperate war against his own element. He tore through the coral reefs and the abyssal trenches, commanding his aquatic legions to find the land dwellers. His frustration boiled the waters. He attempted to transmute giant crabs into elephants and seahorses, into charges. But the salt water could not mimic the solidity of the earth. He was forced to barter with the coastal spirits, trading pearls the size of moons and corals of blood-red hue, racing against the inevitable rising of the sun. As the first grey light of dawn bled across the horizon, the sound of heavy hooves thunderstruck the ground outside the royal palace. The Mountain Lord had returned. Behind him walked a procession of grotesque majesty, the beasts of legend, breathing steam into the morning air. The 9-tusked elephants bowed before the gates. The 9-spurred roosters heralded the sunrise. The 9-maned horses stamped the earth with impatience. King Hong 68th looked upon the scene with a mixture of relief and trembling awe. The condition had been met. The pact of earth and water was about to be shattered. True to his word, but with a heart heavy with foreboding, the king ordered the drums to sound. Princess Myra was brought forth, adorned in red silk and gold, her face a mask of dutiful sorrow. She was to be the bride of the mountain, taken from the lowlands to the high peaks of Tan Vienne. The procession left swiftly, the Mountain Lord whisking his bride away upon the back of the multi-maned steed, ascending toward the clouds just as the sun fully crested the hills. Moments later, a mere heartbeat in the span of eternity, a shadow fell over the palace gates. The Sea Lord arrived. He carried chests of unimaginable wealth and led beasts procured through exhausted fury, sweat glistening on his brow, his chest heaving with the effort of a god pushed to his limit. He found only dust, and the echoing silence of a ceremony concluded. The king's guards blocked the way, their spears trembling. "The princess has departed," they stammered. The Mountain Lord arrived with the first light. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the thunder. The Sea Lord dropped the tributes. The pearls rolled into the dirt, ignored. He looked toward the distant peak of Tan Vienne, where a speck of gold could still be seen ascending. The realization hit him not as sadness, but as a betrayal so profound, it shattered his restraint. He had been played. The king had conspired against him. The air pressure dropped instantly. Birds fell from the sky, their hearts burst by the sudden density of the aura radiating from the Sea Lord. He did not weep for lost love. He roared for stolen honor. The sky turned a bruised purple, and the winds began to scream, signaling the end of peace and the beginning of a calamity that would drown the world. The realization struck the Sea Lord with the force of a collapsing star. He was not defeated by a lack of power, but by the cruel tyranny of time and geography. The very earth the king stood upon had conspired against him. The impossible gifts favored the mountains. The race's distance favored the walker, not the swimmer. This profound injustice ripped through his divine composure. The fiercely majestic man fractured, revealing the terrifying chaotic nature of the primordial ocean that churned within. He stormed into the grand hall of the royal palace, his robes of living sea foam dripping with the icy waters of the deep. He demanded his bride, his voice the low growl of an impending tsunami. King Hong 68th, flanked by his royal advisors, could only gesture toward the distant, hazy silhouette of Tan Vienne. "The pact is sealed," the king declared, his voice trembling but firm. The Mountain Lord arrived with the sun. "You are too late." The words hung in the air, a final damning verdict. "Too late," the Sea Lord whispered, a sound that began as a tremor and escalated into a roar that shook the very foundations of the capital. The ornate pillars cracked, and the tapestries depicting a peaceful kingdom rippled as if in a gale. "I am the tide that swallows continents. I am the storm that erases history. You do not deny me." He did not weep. Gods do not weep. They destroy. With a final contemptuous look, the Sea Lord turned his back on the cowering king, his burning star-like eyes fixed on the highlands. He could just make out the silhouette of the Mountain Lord's procession, a tiny speck disappearing into the sanctuary of the peaks. A promise of vengeance, cold and vast as the abyss, formed in his heart, with a scream of betrayal that shattered every window in the capital and sent birds falling from the sky. The Sea Lord raised his powerful arms. The clear blue sky turned black as pitch, a suffocating blanket of wrath. The rivers of the Van Lang kingdom, once gentle lifelines of prosperity, began to boil and rise, their currents turning violent and unpredictable. He commanded the legions of the deep, the sharks with teeth like obsidian, the serpentine nagas, and the vengeful spirits of the drowned, to hunt. The waters surged past their ancient banks, a ravenous tide consuming the verdant rice paddies, the tranquil villages, and the well-trod roads. This was no longer a pursuit of love. It had transformed into a crusade of annihilation. The Sea Lord chased the carriage of the Mountain Lord, not to retrieve a wife, but to drown the world that had conspired to deny him his prize. The great war between the mountains and the sea, a conflict born of a broken heart and fueled by divine fury, had begun.